Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Harrisburg City Council Legislative Session. It is June 15th, 2016. Mr. Claiborne, please do the roll call.
Mr. Allett?
Present.
Mr. Baltimore?
Here.
Ms. Daniels?
Here.
Ms. Hodges?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Majors?
Here.
Ms. Williams?
Here, thank you very, very much, Mr. Claiborne. Before we start for the invocation, I just want to make a statement to the public, and it's regarding the Orlando, Florida shootings. I just want to say Harrisburg City Council stands with the 1,000 cities in offering our condolences and prayers to the families of the victims in Orlando, Florida shooting. Tonight, Mr. Allett will be making a statement on behalf of Harrisburg City Council. Mr. Allett.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight on Council, we stand united in our grief and sorrow over the events in Orlando. As such, we've opted not to mourn by wearing black, but by wearing our brightest colors. We each are wearing a rainbow pin that is symbolic in the LGBT movement to showcase pride. Our pride is not one that's rooted in boasting, but rather in authenticity and the chance to live openly, love freely, and to celebrate life. A few nights ago, I was honored to address our community at a vigil for the victims of the Orlando shooting, along with my colleague, Shemaine Daniels. In my speech, I focused on the grief that many of us felt and how we must come together to support and love each other as we mourn this loss of our LGBT brothers and sisters. Tonight, I come before you to energize a call to action. Yes, this most recent tragedy we faced was an act of terrorism that was clearly rooted in hatred of the LGBT community. My question for all of you is this: when does it end? To all those who have used their public platform to spew hate and vitriol against the LGBT community, while you may not have pulled that trigger in that nightclub, it is your hatefulness and ignorance that created a culture that created this gunman. Prayers given from those who have spoken out against our community are the very definition of hypocrisy. If you want to help, then check your judgmental tendencies at the door and extend the lawful protections that are given to every other minority group, every other minority group that exists. For those who have attempted some sort of neutrality in this debate, your silence is deafening and only allows the voice of hate to drown you out. An American value is not and should not be one that is rooted in hatred and fear towards those who are different. We have seen acts of violence against so many diverse communities in our country, and it has to stop. Violence and hatred against any group has got to end. Let me be clear. In your lifetime, you will meet people who are different from you, who may have different values, different traditions, and may look different from you. Rather than being afraid or judging what you may not understand, embrace that diversity, because that is part of what makes this country great. Do not fall victim to the rhetoric that is put out by so many. Rhetoric that is harmful, rooted in hatred, and rooted in ignorance. Be responsible for your point of view and make sure your words are rooted in truth and not rooted in stereotypes or biased perspectives. I love that our community in Harrisburg is different, and we are different. While our experiences may be vastly different from each other, we do need to learn to come together and find common ground and learn to listen more to the needs of others, rather than making snap judgments about someone based on their race, religion, political affiliation, creed, the clothes they wear, where they live, or how they speak. We are all part of the human race, and that should be common ground enough. Basic respect and love should be an American value that we can all agree on. Reckless fear, ignorance, and hatred are not values consistent with who we are as a community or as a nation. I'm in pain not just because of what happened in Orlando, but because acts of violence seem to show no boundaries to who it affects. And our response tends to cast blame or to point fingers, when sometimes we just need to look at our own internal fears and insecurities as the reason for why violence keeps occurring. This is a wake-up call, and one that should not go away, and for those who have suffered as a result of violence, whether directly or indirectly, or as a result of unjust profiling, stand with me as I stand with you. I was proud of our community the other night. We came together as one, and I believe we need to continue to expand on that and continue to come together as one community that embraces everyone and that we can all work together towards the betterment of Harrisburg. I implore our leaders at all levels of government to put aside the petty partisan squabbling and do the work of the people and not the special interest. I implore all of you to check your preconceived notions at the door, realize that each and every human being deserves basic respect, and I call on all of you to ignore the criticisms of being politically correct and focus on basic human civility. I simply call on each and every one of you just to love. Really, it's just about loving, and that's all I ask for you tonight. Thank you.
And with that, can we please have a moment of silence? Thank you very much. Moving on to Pledge Allegiance, Mr. Johnson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Allett, and thank you, Mr. Johnson. Moving on to communications, we have none this evening. Moving on to courtesy of the floor, I will start to my right. Anyone who would like to come to the mic, please do so now. Anyone in the middle? Sure.
Good evening, Madam Council President and council members. My name is Dale Leininga. I live at 2435 North 3rd Street, and I'm president of the board of Paxton Ministries. I'd like to speak in favor of Bill 5, 2016, which you will be voting on later this evening. I will be very brief. First, I'd like to thank Councilman Johnson, Chair of the Public Safety Committee, and all the council members who attended the public safety meeting on May 25. We had the opportunity to discuss the vacating of South 20th Street and extensive discussion on a community and economic development project that Paxton Ministries is considering on property we own adjacent to South 20th Street. There will be time in the future to talk more about that project. As you all know, the section of South 20th Street is not a through street. It currently is used by Paxton Ministries and persons who have business with us. Half of the street, which is located in Swatara Township, we already own. Tonight, the focus is on the request for the city to vacate your half of the street. Discussion at the Public Safety Committee indicated that all parties that needed to sign off on this vacation had done so in the affirmative. By voting yes to Bill 5, 2016, you will be saving the city resources which currently are being used to maintain the small section of street, and we will instead become responsible for future maintenance. Finally, we were asked at the committee meeting if we would want to vacate the street, even if our proposed community development plans did not go forward. I answered yes, and I would like to emphasize that tonight that we are indeed asking for approval of Bill 5, 2016, separate from any other plans that are currently being discussed. We'd appreciate it if you would vote yes on Bill 5, 2016, and thank you for your assistance and interest to date. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the middle?
Councilwoman Daniels, my name is Alan Kennedy Schaefer, 252 Verbeck Street, and I wanted to thank Councilman Allett and the entire council for your moving and sadly deeply necessary words. The terrorist attacks in Orlando were a massacre that must not be able to happen again. I would agree with you that this needs to be a call to action. On the state level, we need to enact the non-discrimination legislation that is now pending. Just today made its way, it was introduced in the state Senate for the first time and has been pending in the House for quite a long time and is long overdue. At the federal level, we need to enact common sense legislation to make sure that the assault weapons that are being used in these kind of mass shootings cannot make their way into the hands of terrorists or others who should not have them. That is common sense legislation that this afternoon, even the NRA admitted is necessary. So I would encourage our fellow public officials to keep that in mind in the coming days and to take to heart your words here tonight. I would also just wanted to mention that I read in the Patron News about a decision by the mayor to not allow his communications director to answer questions from reporters and to not allow reporters to attend weekly press briefings. As a longtime supporter of the First Amendment, I'm troubled by this, since freedom of speech and freedom of the press are core values in any democracy and essential to an engaged citizenry. I voted for Mayor Pappenfuse because I believe that he is a supporter of transparency, and I believe he is a supporter of the Constitution, and I hope that he will reconsider this decision, which I hope is simply a misunderstanding and a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the middle? Okay. Anyone else to my left? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President, esteemed council. And for the record, Director Candy Schaefer, she's at least always can be referred to as Madam Vice President, but when she holds the gavel, she's Madam President.
Okay.
First off, I wanted to thank all of you. Went to Arts Fest a couple weeks ago. It was wonderful. As promised, Your Honor, I took my goddaughter by the dinosaurs. Lost her cool completely. She loves it. And all the kids I've seen running around, I'm sure you all have.
Yeah.
Wonderful thing you brought. Really appreciate it. I hope most of you have seen the excellent video his honor did, the recreation of Abbey Road, to promote the crosswalks that he's put on North Front Street. The administration, sorry, I don't want to give him too much credit, of course, all of you. But and I appreciate that too, as someone who lives on both Front Street and 2nd Street. Being able to cross over is a big help. I also use my bicycle as much as possible. And now that the rumble strips are in, I actually feel safe going on down there. The LRTA passed. Not everyone was in favor of it, but now it's here. I'm hoping for an explosion of new property development, new businesses here. I'm looking forward to finally purchasing a house. I'm hoping, I have my VA loan, I haven't used it yet. Hoping to bring some federal money in, buy either a blighted house and fix it up, or a piece of bare property and build it up. I have to remember to stop folding and unfolding his papers. I watched myself on Channel 20 last time, and it's something I keep doing. Speaking of Channel 20, this is by far my favorite show on Channel 20. But as good as this episode will be tonight, tomorrow, the Treasurer show tomorrow, I'm hoping that it's at least, if not broadcast live, can it be at least recorded, uploaded to YouTube? That's a piece of Harrisburg history we should all see. And how good is that going to be? The Honorable Brad Komplinski is returning. The Honorable Dan Miller is returning, vying for this position.
Okay.
We got it. We all have to. I'm going to come. I do have a community event I'm supposed to lead tomorrow in Midtown, so I'm going to have to leave by 7:15, and it's probably not going to be done that, and I want to see it all.
Okay.
I'm starting to feel like an activist, which isn't a title I like. I will say what activated me was a previous episode of the Channel 20 show where I think too many people were throwing around the word coward a little too freely, which is something I would call unstatesmanlike conduct. It's a little too Trumpian. It's not something I expect from all of you wonderful people. You, particularly Council Baltimore, challenged people to have courage and step forward. So if anything I ever says bothers any of you, you have Council Baltimore to blame for me being here. But I want to, much to your statement, Council Owlett, advocate for more civility, more respect. We are going to disagree. We're always going to disagree. I'm afraid to tell you when I disagree because I respect all of you so much. But feel compelled to do it. That's what we're here for. His Honor mentioned in that previous speech I didn't like, he referenced the book Profiles in Courage. I would counter him with team arrivals. Part of the whole volunteer board and commission kerfuffle was about whether people should be on there if they have differing ideas. And I think they should. I think they should be solely judged by how much they love the city of Harrisburg and want to help. There were previous members, I'm back to the EAC now, previous members who quit. They served us, but they left.
Okay.
As far as I know, unless something's changed, there's still one woman on the EAC, and she's the de facto chair, and she needs more members to form a quorum. Both His Honor and the council have appointments to make. There's one woman who, that's one thing I forgot last time. I meant to give a full-throated defense and apology to Ms. Plains for this entire process and what she was put through. A lesser woman would have withdrawn her name. She would have stepped back, but she's no quitter. Likewise, Bill Cluck was no quitter, and Ms. Muhammad is no quitter. We need all three of those people in service of our city if we can get them. And this is where I would give a really good opening if I had one, but I don't, so thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else to my left?
Les Ford, 2033 Bellevue Road, Harrisburg. I heard an interesting sermon probably 30 years ago now, and it had to do with the problem of the other. And the minister explained the role of the other, politically, ethnically, racially, throughout history, and how it was always easy to drum up a sense of hostility against the other. I listened very closely to that, and here I am 30 years later listening to where our country is now and how much we're still struggling with that concept of the other. I am 70 years old. I am used to being the other. I was born into a race of people who historically are considered the other. So I have dealt with that my entire life, and I am particularly taken aback that at this point in our history, we are still failing to come to terms with the concept of the other. So the other might be me today because of race. It may be someone tomorrow because of their poverty status. It may be you because of your ability and your tenacity and your daring to step up and be public officials. It can be any of us. It can be by virtue of race, creed, color, sexual identity, you name it. So I didn't intend to get up, but I feel that people from this community, just ordinary people like myself, need to step up and say that clearly we have not come to terms, we have not grown in our embracing of the other. This has been demonstrated tragically. We're all responding to that. Our hearts go out to the victims. But I'm afraid we're on the verge of creating yet another separation and creation of another other religiously at this point in time. So I said it was a sermon. It was in a Christian church, but it could have been in a mosque. It could have been in a synagogue. It could have been anywhere where people who are created by God come together to discuss how they learn to live with one another, with themselves and with the other. So I would beg us as a community, a small community in central Pennsylvania, to take a good look at ourselves and understand that very clearly, in some way, shape, or fashion, at some time in our lives, we too will be the other. So have compassion, because you're really speaking of yourself when you speak of the other. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else to my left? Mr. Spradley, who is the treasurer for the city of Harrisburg, would like to take a few minutes of our time and present to council an overview of the Treasury Office. At this time, Mr. Spradley, would you please come forward? Do you have additional copies that you can give to? Okay, would you give those to Mr. Claiborne, please? Mr. Spradley, you can sit at the chair instead of standing up.
Can I stand?
Yeah, you, oh, sure, if you want to stand.
This makes me a little bit nervous every time.
Thank you.
So I just want to lighten up a little bit. The gentleman that was before Mr. Ford, as well as Mr. Ford, made some great points about respecting people and the other.
Could you speak up just a little bit louder?
The gentleman that was before Mr. Ford, as well as Mr. Ford, made some great points about respecting people, as well as the other. Coming into this role, I kind of did not receive that same respect that should have went across the board. As many of you may have known, my name was dragged through the dirt, and none of it came back. And unfortunately, it comes to coincidence as Mayor Pappenfuss is having his little issue with the media about checking sources. And that's what's not done a lot of times. I was accused of not being, the word I want to use, qualified. But I was the only accountant that ran for the office at election time, as well as having banking experience. And nothing against Mr. Estella, we have a great communication, but checking sources would know that I did have the background and my graduate grades, as well as my undergraduate grades, as well as my proven track record in banking and retail accounting negated that. So some of those comments that do come across Penn Live or other media sources are just that, comments about people that I feel are not in our community, because no one, if I'm at the Broad Street Market, if I'm at Giant in Klein Village, if I'm downtown walking, has came to me with any of those comments. It's always a hi and a friendly smile. So unlike showing the respect, there's also people with underlying objectives and motives that we need to be careful about. And as you guys go through the new process of selecting the next treasurer, I'd just like to remind you of people's underlying motives coming into this. When you guys are making your selection and the candidates that are coming up for the selection, they need to understand this is a serious position. And I say serious, and not that they won't take it serious, but it's advertised as a part-time commitment, but it's actually full-time work. Some of the issues that came across my desk, as well as my deputy and assistant deputy's treasurer's desk, where servers are down. We in the treasurer's office have no capability of when that goes down, but we need to be able to react. Payments being applied timely, a consistent issue across the city, and most of you may have reached out to me. I know Mr. Benden from the Berg magazine has reached out to me before about payments not being applied timely. And I don't mean timely in like 1 or 2 cycles. I'm talking about years of a past tax issue. It's worked with our office as well as the county office, but that lack of communication on what's really going on and who needs to be taking care of it is something that has not been brought to attention eagerly and timely. Some of the responses I've got when people didn't know who I was on the phone is, well, that's not my job. Not giving me direction on who to talk to, it was, that's just not my job. That's something that needs to stop across the whole city as well as the county as a whole. But you guys being on council, you can maybe more so set that tone on what needs to be said when you don't have the answer. We also had issues with late mailings of bills. Once again, things come up. It could be a holiday. We could not have certain envelopes that go out. The bills could have been printed wrong, but it needs to be communicated in a timely fashion. A lot of times it's on the website, but I know a lot of times I don't look on the website. If I don't receive my bill on time, I don't know what other ways we could push that information out. Thank goodness I don't have to come up with that solution. Another issue I was working with Chief Carter before I stepped away was the paying of parking tickets. Individuals would have to go up to, I'll call it the annex building, if they want to dispute a ticket, come down to the treasurer's office to pay the ticket, and then go back up to the annex to show the proof of the ticket. Chief Carter had recommended putting his person down our office. Since we got rid of CRW, there's plenty of room down there, and to me that seems like a no-brainer. It came late as a recommendation from Chief Carter, so I wasn't able to implement that, but I would like for City Council to maybe push that to the new treasurer, like to make that happen as soon as possible. There's no reason for our citizens to be walking back and forth, not alone if someone has a handicap or is on a time constraint, to get another ticket at the parking meters. The big push towards the end was the Alvarez and Marshall report that came out. A lot of that information, I had spoke with a few members of City Council, current as well as past, were known. There was no big surprise. But the way the report was spun seemed to kind of seem like we didn't know these issues were taking place. The token we knew about, that was corrected before the meeting with Councilman Ben even took place. I had the copy of the spare, which at that time, I'll reiterate, the previous Assistant Deputy Treasurer had left the city, so wires needed to be done timely. They could have went to the controller and maybe gave him a token and walked through the process, but I believe the underlying thought from our deputy treasurer was I need to get these out as soon as possible without the city going to a default for not making a payment. As Alvarez's report came back, because a lot of people that reached out to me obviously didn't read it, they just read the headline they came across of issues in treasurer's office, that was already addressed. And there were no wrong findings of wires that went out that were not approved. It was sent down by the finance office, which was approved by the controller, which then eventually was approved by the treasurer and sent out the door. So the process was flawed, but there were catches where the finance department or the controller would have saw money moving out of the accounts that should not have been moving out of the accounts. Another point in the Alvarez report that I don't really think was emphasized was the issues were not just in the treasurer's office. They are city-wide. When we cannot determine what is in our account balance with 100% confidence, and nothing against Bruce, because a lot of this came on before he came into the city, that's an issue. President Wanda, I know when you had said last time, the question was, how can I trust the numbers you're giving me for the appropriation when you're coming down to council? Thank goodness I don't look at finance issues, and that's kind of one of the points in here where the treasurer's office, unknown to some, is not the finance and accounting office. It's more so accounts receivable and accounts payable. We get payments in, we apply it to an account, and when payments go out from the controller signing off and the treasurer signing off, it goes out the door. Accounting and finance is totally separate, and the Alvarez report recommended for the reconciliation process to move out of the treasurer's office, which that was common sense from day one. And a lot of these issues they mentioned in the report, when the controller, Charlie, and I sat down with Alvarez, we brought to their attention issues that we see, and we want an outside opinion. So when we did come out with the finding, it wasn't we had a political agenda. This was the outside source that verified issues that we had. Charlie is still spearheading the reconciliations coming out of the treasurer's office. He recommended it for it to be brought up to date before his staff takes it over, but he's also looking at new technology to make the process more efficient and more timely. Technology is one of the pieces that we saw as a big hindrance. Previous City Councilwoman Susan Wilson had mentioned it a lot of times over these meetings. We understand the city doesn't have the money, but it's going to have to eventually find it because we're just not doing things the way they need to be done, and that's why some of these things have not been done, as well as being understaffed in a lot of departments. I can speak for my staff, my department. I have not spent a lot of time in other departments to speak on their staff, but it's not like our staff are standing around with their hands in their pocket. They are doing things as fast as they can, when they can. We have people take time off or they'll lose it, and anyone in that position will understand them taking time off. We have people that get sick, and then we also have departments that are truly understaffed. We're working with what we have and working our best ability to do that. This new technology that Charlie is spearheading, he can give you more detail about it, but more so it's going to be a better way for the reconciliations to be done on an automated basis, and when things fall out, that's what they'll be investigating, not going one by one transaction. For you guys that are in the business and accounting environment, you can understand what kind of problem you have when a department that's receiving the money is also getting the bank statements as well as doing the reconciliations. That's ripe environment for fraud. The Marshall and Alvarez and Marshall report, when they came back, they did not say, if you get to further in the report, there is not fraud going on. They didn't say there is fraud going on. They said they weren't able to tell because of the accounting records. Anyone who's familiar, that should be more of an issue than them coming back and saying, we found fraud. They don't know. That's what they're saying. The report, what I took from it was that issue of the technology, of certain departments having resources. Another thing was brought to my attention by a staff member that I'll leave nameless, where they have the ability to change the amount of the payment. And let me just paint a picture for you. Not saying this individual would do it, because I believe they're honorable and stand up, but if someone else came in that role, I couldn't really speak on that. If I came in and my ticket was $50, and I wrote it back to 30, or the staff member wrote it back to 30, they could pocket that $20 and no one would ever know. They changed the amount in the system and they received the cash in the system. Now multiply that by how many transactions go a day. That's what a question I'll leave you with. I don't know if it's a technology issue that a fatal needs to be put in control, or if the system is just not capable of changing that, where if one person can change that ticket, and there are legitimate sources at times, where when we get payments in that are posted for the 15th, but we don't get into the 17th, of course, we have to apply that ticket amount that would have been when it was paid timely. But this is something that needs to be brought to the new treasurer's attention as well as city council, that there are issues with the current system. The new assistant deputy treasurer, Nicole, I can only speak highly of her, not because we had the same previous employer. She actually came on a little bit after me, but she has the outside viewpoint. She has not been a lifelong city employee. Not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just she thinks a little bit differently. She asks the questions that she's not aware of why we're doing it, and she doesn't accept the answer of just, this is the way it's done and this is what we've always did. Does it make sense? And if not, how do we change it where it doesn't affect other departments? And if it does, let's reach out to them and see how it affects them and if what we're doing is actually going to make their life better or worse. She also doesn't do things repetitive and doesn't make the department stagnant. She tries to shuffle around the staff so they learn all new different traits to apply if someone is out. Now, with those roles being union, there's only so much she can do, but I think that's a good environment to be in when you're learning your coworkers' work, what they do. I think that allows you to work a little bit better, where if I'm stopping at one step and then giving the work over to the other person because that's their job, why not learn that step as well, where maybe I can take that step over and then have them do another process. There could be more timely things done in that department when other people are doing 30 seconds more of work instead of just passing it on to someone, then it going to a different department, then it going to a different department to come back to your department to go deposit at the bank. That is one process that happens, and that's with billing and codes. We work closely with them, but they get busy up there where if we hand them something, it could be, a week or two before it comes back out. Or they could be waiting on us for stuff, but we haven't got to it because the trash payments or the real estate payments have came in, and that takes priority over the few dollars that the district justices send over. But if we have cash in our department sitting there, that's resources that the finance department could be using for debt payments going out, or just that it's on the books. We have this money available and we can use it. Over the time I've been in office, we have slimmed down our time of processing payments. Besides the facts when we had those issues that were not in our control, we went from 7 to 14 days. Some people, it was a year before they got answers on a lot of things, down to a 2 or 3 day turnaround. Now, the tax issues are a little bit more complicated. I want everyone to understand some of that stuff goes through the county, where we have to send information over to them. They have to review it and get it back to us. But what we should be doing, and hopefully they will be doing going forward, is keeping the citizens informed of this is where we are in the process. This is what the process looks like. If you have questions, reach out to us or the corresponding person in the county. Communication is the big thing that needs to keep coming across to a lot of departments, especially the Treasurer's Department, where we interact with the citizens, I think, a little bit more than other departments. That's really all I have. I just want to say thank you once again for having the opportunity. And like I had said in my resignation letter, and this comes back to checking sources, the main reason I stepped away was for other opportunities. Not that I was forced to. That's ridiculous. I'm 31 years old. Who's really going to force me to do anything? But the key point here is there are good people in the city, and a lot of times we get shed for bad light. It's not the people that are here day in and day out making sure the job gets done. I know the finance personally comes in over the weekend for a long time to get things done, and they're not given credit all the times as they receive. And a lot of you, and I think most of everyone I came into contact with, does have the citizens in mind first, above their political agendas. And I hope that continues to keep being the process. Thank you.
Welcome. Mr. Sperry, would you be receptive to any questions that the council may
Absolutely.
have at this time? Council members, Mr. Ballmer, I'm starting with you. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. It's very good. Finance Department, Tim Bill, as well, administration in general.
Mr. Majors.
The same, just thank you for your service to the city of Harrisburg, and good luck in your new role, and I will definitely take some of the items that you brought up in the heart and then pursue them further. Thank you.
Ms. Davis.
No, just the same thing. Thank you for your service and thank you for the update.
You guys are making it easy on me.
I'm the questions guy.
No,
It's like-
I do have some, but I was waiting for you.
Well, I only have one question, and that's just in terms of your dedication. Would you be willing to work with whoever is selected as the new treasurer to kind of get them caught up to speed on what's going on? And I mean, clearly they're going to be able to do what they want to do, but being able to give them those recommendations and that direction to make sure there's a sense of continuity within the department.
Absolutely. You know, I definitely would like to do that.
All right, and thank you for your service. I'm sure I'll be seeing you around.
Mr.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the only question I have, coming back to the Alvarez report, I mean, I know even Charlie and I have had lengthy conversations about it as well. The administration did present about a month ago on kind of how things have proceeded since then. They did note improved communication, improved working ability with the treasurer's office. From your perspective, would you agree? And if not, perhaps, what do you think still needs to happen between the interaction? Because I think one of the most glaring things that came out of it was kind of a lack of working within the, I would say, almost interagency working along, working together.
I definitely agree it has improved. It improved well before that. When I had came in, I had talked to the staff each on what they thought issues were as well as pluses. And that's one of the things they felt was the lack of communication between departments. I have met with Bruce numerous times, and all the way back to 2014 on what issues we had in our office that affected his office, as well as things that we shouldn't be doing that his office should be doing. So I don't really think that is still an ongoing issue about the communication, especially between the treasurer's office and the finance office. Sometimes we didn't want Bruce to contact us, but he would. So he's always on that communication tip before, especially big debt payments that were going out, being ahead of time. Hey, we need this done, and we would still have a little bit of time, but he was making sure that we made him to not default anything. So I think the communication as well.
The last thing, and I think you mentioned this, and it's something that has kind of stuck with me too, is that in the report it did mention that not that they found fraud or that they didn't find fraud, is that there was, too hard to tell, basically. Can you speak to that in a little bit more depth in terms of, do you have concerns that something may have occurred that we just don't know about? And if so, within your time there, what do you think we need to do to dig deeper to uncover that?
With not looking completely at the accounting records, I would never put my name next to anything. I like to check my sources. I don't like a report that's handed to me. And that's a scary part that I actually had to pull city solicitor into when I first came on.
Because we're talking about journal entries too, correct? In terms of postings and because I know, and I guess for the public too, all this fun accounting talk, the whole period 13 idea that's been happening historically, it's so much ended up there and we couldn't reconcile it. Is that part of what you're kind of
Correct.
speaking to?
There's still stuff on the reconciliations that's in total, but Bruce's department is working with Nicole now on reconciling those items, and some of these items go back to 08. So it's like the timeliness of the things that need to be done now compared to something that is on the rec, but it may come off, such as there could be a credit balance of, let's figuratively speaking, $1 million, and we have $1 million in debits, but they're individual items. In the treasurer's office, we just don't assume that these $1 million in debits amount to that $1 million credit. It could be something totally different. but we haven't had the time to go back and look at those individual ones. And like I said, that piece was on previous administration where they had another outside source come in and do the reconciliation process. So it's a lot of finance reaching out and trying to figure out exactly what makes that up. And they have came back to us with the information to sum that stuff up, but it comes back to, once again, the resources in the department are stretched slim, being understaffed. But when you had originally asked the question, the issue I had to bring the city solicitor into, and I hope the previous treasurer, as well as you guys, can make this happen as soon as possible. I couldn't get access to the system.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the IT director didn't want me to have it. It's when I requested it, that's never been done. Now I'm asking you, I came in 14. From the IT director's email, no treasurer before me had access to anything. Campbell had access to email. How can you run an office when you don't have access to check the reports that are given to you?
Right.
That's why I would not put my name next to any report that comes out and you saying, or the accounting, is there not fraud going on? No treasurer privy checked it besides what a paper was handed to him.
And I apologize, I thought I have one other question based on what we were just talking about. It seems to be that, and I think because the city didn't have a administration change for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had one, and then we had another, and maybe this could be a rhetorical question to think about, and for the next treasurer to tackle too, is how do we work towards a continuity between administration changes that are just likely to occur anyway now going forward? I mean, it's unlikely we are going to have another, administration come in and be there for 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
But what can we do, or what can we think about to do to help with that continuity of making sure that there isn't that lack of, or that big unknown?
The two P's, basically, policy and procedure. I mean, Bruce does a well job of that, where he'll have his staff come down and talk to our staff. I mean, he's capable of doing it, but he wants his staff to learn where if he's not here, they can do it. The same with any other department. Like, you should have something documented on what your steps are. So if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, the office doesn't come to a stop. Also, like the treasurer's office and controller's office being separate from the mayor's office, they should be more in tune on the financials. And I know Charlie's group now is, they put out a report. I don't know how many people read it monthly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he said there's only a few people to ask questions about it.
Right.
That tells the whole story of what's going on. We started implementing the policies and procedures, and Nicole has been updating those from previous. The ones that are in Treasurer's office previously, when they were shown to me, had dust on them. That means they weren't updated. We provide stuff to the auditors, and this is what a conversation I had with Bruce, but that's more so high level. This is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do. It doesn't tell you the individual steps on how to do it.
And then thank you, and thank you for your service too.
Absolutely.
Ms. Hodges.
Well, thank you for your service and good luck on your future endeavors.
Thank you.
And I was going to ask you a question about fraud as well, but I think Mr. Allett addressed that question. Thank you so much. And I just want to concur with all the other council members. Thank you for the service that you provided for the citizens of Harrisburg and stepping up to the plate when we needed you in that position. And I wish you well as well.
Thank you.
One question came up after that. So did they grant you access prior to you stepping down into that accounting software so you can check?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
That came maybe about the same day that Neil had to get involved and said, pretty much he should have the same access as his deputy.
Okay. So then moving forward, we won't have that issue.
You shouldn't.
We shouldn't
It's
have
like
that
you have to request it, though.
Okay.
I guess that was something that never was requested.
Okay. All right.
Like I said, Jeff didn't have an issue giving it to me. Jeff is the IT director. He didn't know what the procedures were because it never happened. So it was between HR and Neil to make that call, and then pretty much got access.
Thank you, Mr. Spradley, and for coming in to give us an overview of the treasurer's office. We really appreciate that.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Moving on to approval of minutes, approval of the legislative session minutes of May 24, 2016. Council members, are there any omissions, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, minutes will stand as approved. Moving on to report to committee, report from Chair Johnson on the Public Safety Committee meeting of Wednesday, May 25, 2016. Mr. Johnson, are you ready to report?
Yes.
Thank you.
On Wednesday, May 25th, 2016, the Public Safety Committee held a meeting here at City Council chambers at 6 o'clock to discuss Bill 5 of 2016, which was an ordinance vacating and striking from the official map of the City of Harrisburg a portion of South 20th Street between Sycamore and Pemberton Streets pursuant to Chapter 3 on 109 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Harrisburg. At this meeting, we had representatives from Paxton Ministries as well as representatives and neighbors who live in the neighborhood. Basically, this was a continuation of a previous committee meeting that we had before, and there was a public meeting that was held in the middle of that meeting, and this was the second meeting held down here at City Hall. Basically, this ordinance calls for the city to strike that piece of street and to give it to the applicants, which is Paxton Home Ministries, and where they will be responsible for maintaining and keeping up with that piece of properties, which would add to the tax rolls of the City of Harrisburg. Now, the bigger question of that is it was passed down from the zoning meeting in regards to multi-housing unit, which has yet to reach the land development stages, where a lot of the residents had many concerns in regards to traffic, in regards to parking, regards to overall maintaining of the property. And basically, it's very, very important if this was to move forward as far as Paxton Home Ministries receiving the necessary funding to complete the project and submitted the land development phase, that the Planning Commission addresses these concerns while we are vetting out that planning piece of it. Right now, there is no plan that's currently on the books for the City of Harrisburg. There is a proposed plan that is talked about, which in realistic time can change at any point in time until it's officially submitted to the City of Harrisburg. The moment that it's officially submitted to the City of Harrisburg as a plan, as a land development plan, then the questions that many of the residents pose should be answered and should be addressed before moving forward. I share their concerns. I believe within that area, one of the biggest concerns is traffic, and that is a high traffic area. So the plan that calls for possibly the addition of traffic and the possible development of that land, should address those concerns expressed by the residents. So basically, those were the main things that were covered during that meeting. So we will be voting on it as an ordinance for final passage. And that concludes my report for my committee.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Moving on to report from Chair Daniels on the Building and Housing Committee meeting of Thursday, May 26, 2016. Mr. Daniels, are you ready with your report?
Yes, thank you. So the Building and Housing Committee met on May 26 to discuss two resolutions, or a resolution and a bill. The first was Resolution 34-2016, which is a resolution ratifying a master electric energy sales agreement with GDF Suez Energy Resources to provide electricity for certain city utility accounts. We reviewed the contract. In this instance, the administration had signed the agreement, and they're really waiting for City Council's authority to authorize that signature. So the contract is a 3-year contract, and it will cost the city about $215,000 per year, but it saves the city about $243,000, and I don't remember if it is per year or for the entirety of the contract. So the rates that were received under the program that the city participates in was between 2 and 4 cents cheaper than what was currently available. We did discuss the practice of the administration of entering into contracts and then bringing them for ratification as opposed to seeking council approval before entering contracts. But for this contract in particular, we thought the terms were acceptable, and I would recommend an affirmative vote on that resolution. The second item we discussed was Bill 13-2016, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 7-323, special exception and variances in the zoning code of the city of Harrisburg by revising Section 5C on hearing and decisions to, one, clarify that applicants are responsible for notifying surrounding property owners of special exception and variance requests by first-class letter and provide proof of mailing, and to change the existing public notice requirement to property owners within a 100-foot radius of the boundary of the subject property. Under current zoning requirements, the only notification that neighbors to properties are entitled to is the notice on the specific property that's seeking variance or an exception. So we discussed what radius would be appropriate for notification, and in terms of balancing the interests of the applicant as well as the neighbors, we were recommending the 100-foot radius, just so that everyone understands this has been a bill that has come forth. We're probably about almost 2 years looking at this bill, because we have reviewed multiple radii, and the process, whenever we make amendments to it, requires other entities to approve that amendment. So I would recommend that we vote for this in support of this bill, as currently no residents receive notification at their property if there's a special exemption or a variance request.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Moving on to ordinance for first reading, Bill 17, 2016. Please read that into record, Mr. Claiborne.
Bill 17 of 2016 was an ordinance that was moved by Ms. Daniels, seconded by Mr. Baltimore. It's an ordinance amending Chapter 11-101 of the Codified Ordinances of Harrisburg entitled Foreclosure, Property Registry, and Maintenance, changing the annual $200 registration fee to a biannual fee.
That would be placed in Building and Housing Committee. Moving on to ordinance for amendment. We have none this evening. Moving on to ordinance. No, ordinance for amendment.
I think that's what.
Yeah.
I have a motion.
Do you have for what?
Hmm?
For what?
For,
Okay, that's right. Okay, we do have an amendment tonight. We have one for Mr. Johnson.
Basically, before I make the motion, this motion is for our Bill 4 2016, which talks about our small amounts of marijuana legislation that we have been working on. Basically, after that meeting, I took the thoughts of many of the council members and people from the public to propose different amendments to that legislation. I met with the administration. We came together to craft a final bill that we're looking to vote on at the June 29th meeting. So I'm basically going to make a motion to add the amended version of Bill 4 of 2016 to the agenda to make available as amended for inspection by the public.
So I have a second, please? Thank you. Any questions and comments on the amendment?
So just a quick comment. So basically, this will allow the bill to be available for public view starting tomorrow, where members from the public could submit to our city clerk any public comments. I'm trying to also have it available online if you can help me with that, Mayor, as well as copies are available at the city clerk's office. So anyone from the public who would like to submit any public comment for that final piece of legislation before we vote on it on June 29th, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, just for public notice, would you be able to provide us just with a brief synopsis of what the amendments are that you're looking to
Yes.
bring forward?
So basically, a lot of the amendments included one thing we talked about was we talked about the fine structure. So we were able to, we kept intact the 3 strikes, but we, for a first offense and the second offense, it will be $75. So it's not an elevating fine structure. We also included personal use. So basically we wanted to keep people away from using marijuana in our public spaces, and throughout the city. So if you are, one of the amendments proposed, if you were caught personally using marijuana inside the city of Harrisburg, you would receive an elevated fine, which would be $150 for the first offense, and the second offense and the third offense will go as a regular misdemeanor charge. This ordinance will also include marijuana paraphernalia. So throughout the conversations, we talked about how in a typical case, someone may get caught with possession, and they are both charged with the marijuana possession as well as the marijuana paraphernalia. And the marijuana paraphernalia is actually a higher charge. It's a misdemeanor 3 charge. So within this legislation, I did a lot of research where I saw cities were also took down the marijuana paraphernalia charge to a summary offense. So both the possession and the marijuana paraphernalia charge will be considered summary offenses. So if you are charged with marijuana paraphernalia, your citation would be for the first offense $75, second offense $75, third offense will be the same as the misdemeanor. And I think those were the main amendments changes that were made to the amendments. We are going to work with our MDJs to look for alternative sentencing options for our youth within the city of Harrisburg to promote, community service as an option for when our youth are caught with these type of violations, and basically encouraging them to be more inclined to give them community service and the possible dismissal of charges based upon completion of community service options. So those meetings are in the works. But based upon those amendments, we feel like it attacks the issues that we saw that were here inside the city of Harrisburg, while also not condoning the use of marijuana throughout the city. So there's different talks of different legislation moving inside our state Senate and House right now, which is very, very almost in line to what we're doing. So I'm very, very proud of what we were able to achieve as far as those amendments. So if anyone likes to publicly comment on those amendments, feel free to submit those comments to our city clerk.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you for that synopsis, and I look forward to getting an opportunity to look at the bill once it's available to the rest of the public, and look forward to the comments that we did receive on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Majors.
I have a comment. I just want to say thank you for adding the community service and piece and for the youth. And also, I hope one of the people that will be your partners in talking to is the school district, just to implement to the youth that we are not condoning them to smoke marijuana or use it, but just what can happen if, they are caught. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please call the vote.
For the motion to add it to the agenda, Mr. Allett?
Yes. Amen.
Mr. Baltimore?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to ordinance for final passage, Bill 5, 2016. Mr. Claiborne.
Bill 5, 2016 was moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Allett. It is an ordinance vacating and striking from the official map of the city of Harrisburg a portion of South 20th Street between Sycamore and Pemberton Streets pursuant to Chapter 3-109 of the codified ordinances of the city of Harrisburg.
Any questions or comments on Bill 5? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill carries,
Thank you.
passes.
Please read Bill 13, 2016.
Bill 13 of 2016 was moved by the applicants are responsible for notifying surrounding property owners of special exception and variance requests by first-class letter and provide proof of mailing, and 2, change the existing public notice requirement to property owners within a 100-foot radius of the boundary of the subject property.
Any questions or comments on Bill 13? Please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Bill 13 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to resolutions. There's a motion to amend the resolution from Mr. Allett, Budget and Finance.
Yes, there was an administrative error to Resolution 33 of 2016, which was passed on May 24th. I would like to make a motion to correct that error and include the version of Appendix C to fix that error. Also, I'll make, as part of that motion, we'll correct the minutes from May 24th as well to include that.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
A point of clarification, Madam President. The reason for the correction is that what is being attached is the actual exhibit that was presented at the committee meeting, as opposed to one that was in the original introduction.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments, council members? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 34, 2016.
Resolution 34 of 2016 was moved by Ms. Daniels, seconded by Mr. Majors. It is a resolution ratifying a master electric energy sales agreement with GDF Suez Energy Resources, N.A. Incorporated to provide electricity for certain city utility accounts.
Questions or comments on Resolution 34? Hearing none, please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution 34 passes.
Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 42.
Resolution 42 of 2016 was moved by Ms. Hodges, seconded by Ms. Daniels. It is a resolution ratifying a grant agreement with Highmark Blue Shield for a grant to support the city's summer and after-school programs.
That will be placed in Park and Enrichment Committee. Resolution 43, Mr. Majors.
Yeah, I'd like to make some, I'd like to make a motion to add the following resolution to the agenda. It would be Resolution 43, Resolution 43 of 2016, a resolution authorizing and approving the negotiation and entry into a memorandum of understanding between the City of Harrisburg and the Harrisburg School District for the city to create and operate a composting facility on real property of the school district and to cooperate in the provision of related on-site educational and training activities.
Questions or comments? Oh, I need a second, I'm sorry.
Second.
Questions or comments? No. We're just moving the motion, add it to the agenda. We're not voting on it. This will go into Public Works.
This is the motion for resolution.
Resolution 43. Any questions or comments? Please call the vote.
Mr. Allett?
Yes.
Mr. Baltimore?
Yes.
Ms. Daniels?
Yes.
Ms. Hodges?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Ms. Williams?
Yes.
Resolution
And this will be
43.
placed in Public Works Committee. Moving on to old business, council members, any old business this evening? Moving on to new business, council members, any new business?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes, I'd like to announce a Public Works meeting, which will be held on, I think it's Thursday, June 30th at 5:30 PM here in council chambers. That'll be to discuss Resolution 43 of 2016 and any other matters before the committee.
Anyone else? Is that conjunction with yours? Are you going to have a meeting?
I'm going to have mine the 30th of CDBG meeting. Going to be the day.
You want to
after.
announce that, please?
Yes. We're going to have a CDBG meeting, actually a Community and Economic Development meeting on the 30th of June to further discuss HUD funds.
And that's in conjunction with Public Works on June 30th at 5:30. Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
There will be a public safety meeting. The date's not confirmed, but it'll probably either be Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. That date should be confirmed by tomorrow. And when that date's confirmed, our city clerk will get that notice out to the public. I just wanted to put it out in the air that there will be a public safety committee meeting.
Anyone else?
There will be a Parks and Recreation meeting next Monday, June 20th, at 5:30 here in the boardroom. Just to remember to submit your questions that you have for Kevin by tomorrow to Kirk. And also I wanted to just announce that Messiah Center for Public Humanities is partnering with Downey, one of our schools in our district, to bring credits to the community. If you go through the program, you have a chance to earn 6 college credits that are transferable.
Thank you. Anyone else? I only have one, and that's to announce that the city treasurer public meeting will be here tomorrow in City Council chambers, and that will be at 5:30. And we have 3 candidates that we will be interviewing. At that, may I have a motion to adjourn? Second? Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.